So here we are, sharing secrets of the soil with me, your host, Regen Ray. Hello, soil lovers, and welcome to another episode of Secrets of the Soil. I'm Regen Ray, your host, and I'm really excited to dig deeper in our soils today with our guest, Lorraine Gordon. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Regen Ray. How are you?
I am fantastic and super excited to be chatting with you. Tell our soil lovers a little bit about who Lorraine Gordon is and how you fit into the regen space.
Sure. Okay. Well, look, first and foremost, I'm a farmer. I'm a fourth generation farmer. My children will be fifth generation farmers, actually. And I like to say I'm a carbon farmer that uses cattle trading to sequester carbon. So that's who I am right at the heart of Lorraine. I'm also Director of Strategic Projects at Southern Cross University, which encompasses the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance and the National Farming Together program.
So you're very busy. How do you keep up with everything and fit that in? Because I know a lot of times people are in this space of either innovating and planning, but you also got the farming side of it as well. How do you find that balance? Or does each one support each other?
Let's cut to the chase. I don't always find that balance. It's normally, it can be chaotic at times. And let me tell you, I wake up some mornings and think, oh my God, how am I going to get through the day? And where do I start? I'm very lucky on two fronts. I have an incredible team, both at Southern Cross University that works with me in the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance and in Farming Together. And I have an excellent team on the farm as well. And they're all very dedicated people. And so it's just, we're like a family. I've got two families and we're very close and we're all sort of heading hopefully in the same direction.
Oh, I think we are. From what I've seen and what I hear and the energies that comes from all the groups that you're around, I definitely feel it that we're all on the same ship heading in the right direction. You've mentioned the two companies there or two groups, Farming Together and the Regen Ag Alliance or Regenerative Ag Alliance. How do those two work together hand in hand and what are they serving?
Sure. So look, Farming Together, I like to look at Farming Together as like the engine room of what we do. So Farming Together is all about building collaborative models, collaborative business models, helping farmers and people work together to achieve their goals. So we've got some really good smarts and experience on how to create impact and scale across the nation. And that's come about doing the hard yards with Farming Together. I mean, we ended up with nearly 29,000 farmers connected to that program in every region of the country and in every primary industry. And to be able to sort of take that sort of energy to achieve impact and scale on the ground, I can tell you we were flying. And it's really from that learning how to get people to work together and what are the best models for that to happen, and even analysing should they work together, which sometimes we forget. We throw people together that sometimes really shouldn't be working together. So that program is still going, and it really is the engine that drives the Regenerative Agriculture Alliance. And so we knew we had to go to the next level. And in all the programs that we supported through Farming Together, we were very focused on what I like to call the triple bottom line, which is looking at the economic, social and environmental outcomes of everything we funded and supported. And because we did tick those three boxes with every project, it was really easy for us to then move to the next level, which was regenerative agriculture, and say, okay, what's next? What's our next move here that we have to do to be able to create impact and change across Australia? And basically, it's crazy, but walking around the suburbs of the back streets of Western Sydney, it was really Ethan, my son, and I, saying, right, what's the next thing we need to do here, that came to the conclusion that we need to really drive regenerative agriculture across the country. So that's how it was born. And
love that. Amazing. Yeah, it's just kudos to you for, being a key person to drive this movement. And you've thrown the word regenerative, and I use it a lot too. But I'm really curious to know, there's no definition to the word regenerative, and I kind of like that. I know you have principles and practices, but what does the word regenerative mean to you?
Look, basically, regenerative means to me is in an agricultural sense. So let's be clear on that. But I like to say it's leaving the landscape in a better shape than we found it. That's simple. That works for me. There is a lot of definitions out there, and it is important to have a definition for regenerative agriculture. But it's even more important that the individual comes up with their own definition of what it means to them. And one of the things I like to do with our students at Southern Cross doing the regenerative agriculture degree is to actually ask them to come up with their own definition in year one and then revisit it in year 2 and year 3 and when they graduate, because it will change as their level of understanding of what regenerative agriculture is, it will change. And so it's, you do need a definition, but there are many definitions, just like there were many definitions for what is sustainability.
Yep. And I love that whole exercise of putting a definition and then revisiting it. And that means, and that's what I like about it, is that it's not static, it's dynamic. As we change as a human, I'm big believer. And I love the fact that you cleared up the fact that it was regenerative ag and what it meant in that space, because you can take it at different levels, the regenerative human, regenerative mindset, the soul, the spirit. It's about the regenerative way of living that makes up that whole movement.
Well, like all things, everything starts with soil.
Yeah.
So the great thing about being in agriculture is agriculture comes up with everything first. We are the real innovators, farmers.
Absolutely.
And so, the regenerative movement, of course, was going to start in agriculture, but in actual fact, where will it end? It won't end. It will just keep moving into different spaces as it is already. So you'll end up with regenerative urban design, you'll end up with regenerative health, and the whole area of regenerative practice.
Absolutely. You can see that all the major cities are now starting to have Regen Melbourne, Regen Brisbane, these hubs of innovation. And it's how do we, absolutely. We're going to have so I can't wait to see this regenerative movement unfold. And that's something that got really me excited, is what you defined it as, leaving it better, whether it be the land, whether it be the human race, whether it be our urban landscapes. It's just that continual improvement that we are better today than what we were yesterday, and for a future tomorrow. I know that you play a big part in the education space. You're obviously at the university. You've got a Bachelor of Science that has a major in regenerative. What is I want to talk about like the resilient mindset and what that means from like the paradigm shift that needs to happen in the education space to kind of make this feel more logically pieced together. I feel like sometimes it just sits on the side a little bit. And it's maybe because the education system that we go through doesn't train us to look at the bigger picture, or doesn't let us zoom out and see the many parts of the whole. What's your mindset kind of paradigm shift that needs to happen for someone going through this program, through this journey?
Wow, there's a lot of aspects to that question. First of all, I think what's happened is, unfortunately, some people have seen regenerative agriculture as a little bit threatening, as a bit of it's the regenerative farmers and then there's everyone else. And I advocate that that's actually not the case. And often when I'm speaking around the country about what is regenerative agriculture and what it's not, when I start to sort of talk about the practices with farmers, it's amazing to watch a whole room, for instance, of dairy farmers, so-called conventional dairy farmers go, oh, we're already doing 2 or 3 of those things.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, what's new about this? And I said, look, this is fantastic because you're actually regenerative farmers. So can you please just keep, trying these practices, keep doing what you're doing, and then you're on the regenerative journey like we all should be. So I'm really about bringing this together. It's not going to be a them and us thing. It's not like, the purists and the non-purists. We've all got to walk the regenerative journey together.
Yep.
And I think it's why some other universities perhaps have been lagging in the space is, they get nervous about, for a start, looking at things in a holistic context because they're very used to the reductionist science approach. And that absolutely has its place. We really need to understand that you need to be able to drill down to get answers as well, but you also need to be able to step back and look at things in a holistic context.
Yep.
And I think that's where the struggles have been. But they will come because, it's such a big movement now and we can't just keep teaching the way we have been. We have to change because the climate is changing. And guess what? We're part of the environment and we're going to have to change with it. And unfortunately, those that don't want to work with the environment and change with it really won't survive. So it's critical that we do understand we are part of the environment and need to go with it. And that includes our level of understanding, our level of education in the space. We need to learn about the basics of ecology. You're going to hear a lot of people talk about the fact that technology is going to, save the planet and technology is going to save agriculture. Technology is just a tool.
Yep.
There is some great technology out there, some great tools, but having a deep understanding of ecology and how our landscapes function is the best thing we can do to be able to survive and be resilient into the future.
Absolutely. And I
don't even know if I answered your question.
Oh, right? Absolutely did. I think
I can't remember what it was.
That's okay. That's all good. It's in flow. We're just talking from the heart and we're not overthinking it, which is the magical part of doing this type of conversation podcasts is that. And I think, from what you said then, it's like having a hammer in your toolbox and feeling like you can just fix everything with a hammer. Eventually you're going to hit something like glass and it's going to break. So it's using the right tool at the right time, and being equipped with those tools that you can lean on and say, okay, I'm presented with this situation. All right, this time I need to use tool A and tool B. And there is no right and wrong. It's just using the right thing at the right time and knowing that this is where we want to take our farm or this is where we want to take our business. And I know I'm meeting a lot of people who are learning regenerative stuff and they don't even have access to farm. They just want to learn it so they can be advocates. And I'm one of those. I don't have land yet, but I'm working through this cause through other people and our members in our community and other soil lovers, as we love to call our community. So with that in mind, I want to just touch on the fact that it seems like there's a lot of groups that are coming together and the importance of kind of collaborating. You've got, a lot of different people in your network, in your inner circle. What is the importance of collaborating in this regenerative space to from your point of view?
Well, it's actually essential. And that's why the farming together and regenerative agriculture work so beautifully together. Because, the power of change comes about from people working towards a common goal together or a common vision. And so it's a very hard journey on your own. And one of the things I advocate for is the likes of carbon co-ops, for instance. Out of the Farming Together program, we ended up with, I think it was about 70 new co-ops in the end. And the reason co-ops have hung around for so long is because they're a beautiful model. They're about the good of the whole, not the good of the individual. What's best for the whole, not what's best for the individual. And whenever you've got that sort of mindset, then you're thinking about all the elements of your community, and you're thinking about all things, not just yourself. So, it really does underpin, if you want to create impact and if you want to create scale for something that's worthwhile, as an individual, you can't do it. But together, walking those things, that path together, you absolutely can. So, it's the engine that drives change, collaboration.
Agreed. And the fact that, your strength might be someone else's not so strong suit, and it can work interchangeably, the yin and the yang of working together. I was watching a documentary this week, and they said my business partner's strengths are all the things that I'm horrible at. And together, just like nature, there's some chaos and hecticness, but it all works really, really well. And I just thought that was really, there's a beauty in chaos. We've kind of living a way of like demonizing that and going, oh, chaos is messy house or messy mind or messy room. And it's like, no, there's something nice about a messy landscape of all these. Look at a rainforest. There's no order. It's just random,
Well, chaos is creative. You have chaos, you can create things from that. And that's, just like in a landscape, you need biodiversity. Well, you need diversity in the people that you bring together, so you can get diverse ideas and diverse approaches. So there are many approaches to landscape management. There's that of our First Nations people, there's the NRMs, there's the farmers, there's the academics, the researchers, the consultants and advisors. They all bring a different perspective to a landscape. And it's not until you bring all of those perspectives together that you start to address some of the really complex challenges and problems. Whereas the likes of one farmer there scratching his head, or her head, it might be the case, is not as powerful as bringing a whole group of farmers together or a whole group of different perspectives into that space.
Yeah, I love that. We always think of biodiversity or diversity as like bug counts or species counts, but the humans, the custodians on the land, is also part of that equation. You bring in many minds of creativity. An artist will look at the same problem very different than someone who's in marketing, someone who's got a PhD, someone who's, of a different walk of life or nationality or belief systems. And together, that is a super powerful group of people that can solve a problem together.
Yeah. And we mustn't forget that we are just another species on planet Earth. So if we get this wrong, we must keep in mind that Mother Earth does not really need us. She needs the humble bumblebee more than she needs the likes of us. And so if we disrupt things too much, then chaos will unfold and we are dispensable.
Such a good point in regards to that. I feel like sometimes we feel like we're invincible and that we own the land, and really the land and Mother Nature owns us, and we are just one very small part of that puzzle, and
that's right.
And sometimes it's hard to look out the window and not feel like we're going in the wrong direction. But I'm very hopeful with the people I get to chat with and knowing what some of the innovation that's happening in this space. There is so much hope. And I said it on a live stream the other day that the podcast really gave me a lot of inspiration during lockdowns. This was something that really lit up the fire inside of me, that there are some amazing projects being worked on that go beyond, 2021 and the lockdowns and the future to be.
And, when you have a look, there's some great examples of the power of Mother Earth when you look at what's going on right now. Us being able to bring a pandemic under control. Good luck. The fires we had from 2019 onwards, a big awakening really. And it just shows you how small we are, but yet our footprint and our influence can have a massive effect. So it does put a lot of things into perspective.
Agreed. Soil lovers.
I know I'd rather be working with her than against her right now.
Absolutely. That's some heavy stuff there, Lorraine. Soil lovers, we're going to take a quick break, but when we get back, we're going to be talking about certification and its place in the regenerative space, some of the principles, and Lorraine's experience with carbon farming. Stick with us. Welcome back, soil lovers. I'm hanging out with Lorraine Gordon. I'm Regenerative, your host. Lorraine, I know you've had a real big experience around carbon farming, and you opened up the podcast saying that you're a carbon farmer. Share with your soil lovers a little bit more about what carbon farming is and how they can, partake in this kind of fun exercise, I guess. I don't know if it's fun initially, but I think the future is bright with it if you embrace it in the right way.
Sure. Yeah, look, carbon farming, geez, this is a whole podcast in itself, Ray, but there are There are a lot of lessons to be learnt in this space. It is relatively new to a lot of farmers, and there's a lot of noise out there. Can I be so bold to say, is there a lot of sharks as well? A lot of people are climbing over each other to make money out of carbon farming and carbon trading. So, you need to be careful. I think most of the time farmers are very good business people, and you really need to put a business hat on with this one, because with carbon farming, you're locking yourself into contracts for some 25 years. So if you're locking yourself into a contract, for instance, with an aggregator or a consultant or so forth, you really want to make sure that that partner is someone you want to still be talking to in 25 years. I mean, most marriages don't last that long. So,
glad you said
buyer beware, buyer beware. Carbon farming is, I think, one of the big answers to reducing greenhouse emissions and to addressing climate change. And we need it to happen yesterday. So I spend a lot of time trying to help farmers, educate farmers in the space. I'm no expert on sequestering carbon, that's for sure. But what I have done is I have registered our farm. We are carbon farmers. I'm walking the talk. I'm making the mistakes. I'm very much an early adopter on many things, and I'm prepared to put my money where my mouth is. So I haven't gone with an aggregating model. I've gone alone, and I've paid the costs up front to do the soil testing and to be able to register and all of the paperwork that's involved, and there is a bit involved. So I'm really happy to do that because I won't be sharing my profits at the other end. And I think there's huge potential here. It's almost like another enterprise for farms, and it could be a very lucrative enterprise. But make no bones about it, you cannot be a carbon farmer unless you're a regenerative farmer, because it's all the regenerative techniques that build carbon in the soil. So that's really important to keep in mind. So there are a lot of tips with carbon farming. Definitely, if you're going to go down this track, do register with the government, because you cannot then go back retrospectively and then if you have built carbon and then think that you're going to be able to sell it on the market. You can't do that. So you can register and you can start the carbon journey. You don't have to sell your credits. You might want to wait till 3 to 5 years' time and see if you've sequestered any carbon and then just sell it on the spot market, which is what I would advocate to do. Don't lock into contracts. Just carbon is only going in one direction, and that's up. And so there's now accus out there that are worth, in excess of $50, and the government's paying around $15, $16 at the moment. So there's the corporate market, and then there's the government market. It's a very noisy, messy, chaotic, as you call it, space. So do as much homework as you can on this. Talk to the ERF, ask questions of them, but do not try and cut corners. And there are some companies out there that have done that and gone for their own types of methodologies. They will not stack up. They're not rigorous. The scientists are ripping them apart. And it is important to go about it the right way, which is getting registered and having a farm plan in place. And when you say a farm plan, it's a farm plan to sequester carbon using some different methods than you would normally use. The other good thing about carbon farming is at the same time you're sequestering carbon, you're increasing your productivity. So in our case, on our farm, we chose 4 new methods that we would do that we hadn't done before. One of them was adding a different mineral. So we're always correcting the soil with mineral inputs. So we hadn't tried a particular mineral before, so one will be putting a new mineral into the system. We're doing multi-species pasture cropping. We're using compost on scale, which we hadn't done before, and we're increasing our stock density. So we'll be moving more cattle more quickly across the landscape to speed up the photosynthesis, and therefore, if I'm speeding up photosynthesis, I'm sequestering carbon. So that's the practices that we've chose for our carbon farming model. Now, at the same time we're doing that, all of those things are going to increase our productivity. So it's a win-win. And I can easily justify spending the money on baselining to be able to get that sort of an outcome. And there is a bit of a furphy out there, I must say, that's people say, oh, it's just so expensive to do the baselining, or it's so expensive to get into carbon farm. No, that's not true. There are aggregators that will pay for the lot up front. Mind you, they'll take their cut at the other end. So, you know, there are farmers that can get into it and it'll cost them nothing to get into carbon farming. And I look at it this way, that if I wasn't spending money on carbon farming, I'd be sinking money into yet another fence or a new tractor or more fertiliser or something else that just gobbles up money on a farm that doesn't actually produce me a new enterprise or necessarily make me measurable income out the other side. Do you know what I mean? So I think it really does justify itself to me.
And I love the fact that you've mentioned that, because it's that delayed gratification. You know, farmers are used to buying a tractor, X amount of dollars, the tractor gets delivered, a new implement or building a new fence. And it's like, wow, look at it. She shows so straight, you know, and it's like, I built that. And there's a bit of ego there as well. When it comes to carbon farming, it's like, oh, there's this organic matter in the ground that I can't see, and it's somehow going to make me money down the track. And maybe it will, maybe it won't. But my biggest point on this, and you've touched on it really nicely, is like buyer beware. You need to know who you're getting in partnership with, you know, and go and explore that. I think the worst thing you can do is wait 10 years and then go, I wish I would have done that 10 years ago. You can't go back and get those credits later, you know. No. So you need to put some faith in the system and have that delayed gratification. And I was talking to someone the other day and I said, carbon farming sometimes can be that light at the end of the tunnel. You might be doing something on your farm and get very close to giving up. It's like, oh, this regen movement's too hard. But then it's like, no, but if I get carbon credits down the track, that's what I'm doing this for. This yield might have been lower this year, but there's credits that are coming. You know, we might have had a flood, but there's credits that are coming. You know, it could give you that kind of lifeline or that light at the tunnel, thinking it's long-term thinking too. You know?
Yeah, it gives farmers hope.
Yep.
You know, they're off the treadmill. Let's all get off the treadmill, for God's sake. Let's not try and keep up with the Joneses with the shiny new red tractor.
Yep.
You know, yes, it's something very obviously that you can touch, that's tangible and you can show off to the neighbour, but does it really make you that much extra money? In some cases, it's very justifiable, for sure. I just feel that if I want my farm to be sustainable for future generations, and it may be that all my three boys might want to farm that farm, then I need another enterprise that's going to set this whole family farm up to be more resilient into the future. And you know what? A new tractor's not going to do that for me. So I can easily justify it. Everybody has, you know, different reasons for how they spend money, but let's be honest. Farmers spend a hell of a lot of money sinking it into a farm. So sink some more into some soil tests and you'll benefit from increased productivity anyway.
Yep.
Then you can go and buy your shiny new red tractor.
That's it. Sink the carbon for delayed gratification. Love that. And I want to touch on I want to shift gears a little bit. Tractor pun intended. I wanted to just talk about your view on certification. I've heard you speak on stage many times, and I think we sing the same song, but I want to hear your take on whether certification for regen is the way or not the way.
Yeah, look, I have talked about this on numerous occasions, and there's a whole heap of reasons why certification doesn't make sense. This is not the organic sector. And with all due respect to the organic sector, what they tend to do is they draw a line in the sand and they say this is in and this is out. Regenerative agriculture is not about that. It's about being on this continuous path of transformative learning. So if you draw a line in the sand right now and say this is in and this is out, then you've just stopped learning. You've stopped progressing as a human being, understanding a landscape. So it is very, very different from organics. So if you're going to, and that's one of the principles, and perhaps the easiest way to talk about certification is to look at some of the principles around regenerative agriculture. So it is about thinking holistically and understanding complex adaptive systems and the chaos that you just mentioned. So if our landscapes are forever changing and evolving and re-evolving themselves, then you can't take a moment in time and call it something like a certified product. You can certify certain practices. So you can certainly certify that, for instance, this is a grass-fed product, or you can certify that this farm does not use any artificial fertilizers or chemicals or pesticides or herbicides. All those things can be certified because they're an exact practice. But if you're trying to certify regenerative agriculture, which is an ever-moving feast, and it's on this higher level of understanding about our landscapes on this journey, then you can't draw that line in the sand, because then you've capped yourself at this point when you could have actually, kept growing, and we could have gone so much further. So getting back to what the principles around regenerative agriculture are, we have to understand that human cultures are co-evolving with their environments. If we are co-evolving, then we can't do that. Now, we can't certify. The other issue I have with certification is it is all about those that are in and those that are out. Now, if we're going to be truly collaborative and bring everyone on the regenerative journey, the last thing we want to do is say, oh, no, you're not regenerative, you're not certified.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. Regenerative means we all go together. We're a community. We belong together as a community. So that's the other reason why, its certification doesn't make sense. Verification, on the other hand, does make sense, because you're verifying that you're working towards a certain goal. And that goal is a healthy landscape function. And do we ever get there? I don't believe you ever get there. I actually don't. You're verifying that you are trying and learning, and it's all about continuous improvement. But it's a brave person that can stand up and say, I'm there. Because then they've stopped trying to get to that higher level of landscape function. So, yeah, there's just a few reasons why I don't believe that, it's and others don't either. If you look deeply at the principles around regenerative agriculture, it just doesn't stack up. But verifying that you're working towards certain practices is far more palatable, I think, for people. And I do not want to divide a nation of farmers over those that are in and those that are out.
I agree. And so for our soil lovers listeners who are buyers and consumers of products, what can they do to ask better questions if there is no certification, which I definitely think is the right way forward for every reason that you said there? It's about the collaborative approach. It's about working together. It's not about you're in or you're out, or you can pay to play and you can't. How do people who are buying the produce ask better questions? What do they need to look for in order to be empowered in our aisles or at the farmers markets?
Yeah, I think a lot of conversations around this. I think what's going to happen is there are some really good certifications out there and verifications, and I think it's getting to know what they all mean. So, for instance, there's humane choice, which says that those animals have been raised and killed in a humane manner. So that's a really important one for if you're concerned about the well-being of the animals. Then there's the likes of someone like the land to market verification system, which again is about holistic farm management practices and working towards landscape function and healthy landscapes. And then there might be in the future, I would hope, and one of the things that I'm working towards is to have a tick that says I'm a carbon farmer. So I'm registered to sequester carbon on my farm. Now, you can't sequester carbon unless you do certain things. So that's a pretty easy one for the consumer to follow, the carbon story. So what I like to call that is it's almost like brand stacking. It's almost like they might also be registered for biodiversity credits and offsets. And so all of these could be badges on a product, but that all these badges mean different things. Mm-hmm. There is not one badge that's going to capture all of those things, and that's going to be rigorous. So I think there's not, it's a hard question for the consumer, but they need to educate themselves on what does that actually mean. You see a lot of product out there, for instance, that have got stamped organic on them, but they're not certified organic. And the reason they're not certified organic is because the certifiers have made it so hard, in a lot of cases, that it's just there's now a whole black market in the organic sector. And there's those that are trying to do the right thing, paying thousands of dollars to be certified to get the certification tick. And there's those that are operating in the black market because they might be small farming operations and they can't afford to be certified. But then that takes the rigor away from that whole certification story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And
whereas, if we have the verification, we're verifying that, this is what this farmer is really trying to work towards, a better environment.
Yep. Value alignment. You can be in the aisle and you can see, well, this farm, I know what carbon means, and this farmer's partaking in that practice and value alignment. And I think, we are, especially with the use of QR codes now being kind of basically mainstream, it is going to get a lot easier. And I see products with QR codes all over them now where we can scan in a shop and meet the farmer in the aisles and see their brand stacking. I like what you said there, where it's like, the more things that you're partaking in, the more brand stacking you get, and you can then, as a buyer, make those choices in the aisle and educating yourself. Become more of what I call a conscious consumer. Be conscious about what you're consuming, and supporting a model that aligns with your values. Yeah,
and you'll be able to put your mobile phone over these products, and it'll scan them, and it'll tell you exactly what those badges mean. Or it'll even go one step further and show you the story of the farmer trying to achieve those values. So there are many ways to do it, but we need to bust out of the old paradigm that we've always got to, put something in a box that says it's black or it's white.
Yep. And I think we can learn so much from what's happened with many of the, Made in Australia has gone through the same thing. The organics has gone through the same thing. People will always innovate ways to outsmart the system, to make it called Made in Australia, but the plug was put on at the last step when it was imported. It's now made in Australia because it was imported in parts. Like, people are losing faith in these kind of systems, and we need to make sure that we learn from that and go, let's do it the smart way, not just what everyone's always done in the past.
Which brings me to another little thought bubble, which I often have these little thought bubbles, but it's important too that the consumer also is educated about types of products. So, what we have out there is a lot of people that have become vegetarians because they think that livestock is bad for the planet and bad for the environment. Now, again, that's a very misinformed point to take without being educated about the fact that hooved animals have a symbiotic relationship with pastures. And one of the best tools we have on planet Earth to increase photosynthesis and sequester carbon, because when they're running across the landscape, their hooves they're chopping up the pasture, which means they're fertilizing the seeds. They're giving that pasture a quick haircut, and that increases photosynthesis, which increases carbon into the soil. So in some areas, if we don't have that hoof impact, then particularly in the Western country, those landscapes will quickly turn to desert because the pasture relies on getting its haircut. And that's the best way to explain it. Pasture needs a haircut. It doesn't need to look like a bowling strip or, it's all about the way we manage the hooved animals in the landscape. Because there are products out there, like the soya products, that have a lot of packaging. I mean, when you look at some of the vegetarian food on the shelves, have a look at the plastic it's wrapped in, and then go back and have a look at how some of those products are actually grown. And I can guarantee they're not always in the best sense for the environment. Some of those vegetarian products, and soya is a great example.
I couldn't agree with you more. Could not agree with you more. I have this discussion many times and I don't want to create any arguments or divides. So I feel we've got enough of that in the world at the moment. But I really, 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 really want soil lovers to hear that message that the integration of animals and done well and correctly is a massive solution to the problem. I don't agree with feedlots and the destruction of what the food system has done. And that, yes, is very problematic. But if we take that more holistic approach and we realize how powerful the grass is when it's on a well-managed program with hoofed animals, the results are just exponential, and nothing saddens me more than the biodiversity loss in a monoculture soy farm. And I just think if people realized how much animal loss was caused by this monoculture of soy to do the right thing, it's a big wake-up call, and it's asking better questions. It's understanding how biodiversity works. There's regenerative farmers that are next door to a conservation park, and they're getting wildlife that's never been seen in the area before. Yet the conservation park gets lots of money to bring back that wildlife, isn't getting anything because they're not focusing on biodiversity. They're just putting it in a cage and saying this is protected land. That's not well-managed land.
No, that's not well-managed land. And I think, consumers really do need to educate themselves in this space. There is a big difference between a grass-fed animal and a feedlot animal. Yep. And unfortunately, they all get thrown into the same pot that beef is bad. No. And I'm not going to try and, I'm not here to debate feedlots, but I will say that there are grass-fed products and grass-fed beef, well managed across the landscape, is not only good for the environment, but it is good for your health. It is full of omega-3s. And in fact, the same level of omega-3s is in grass-fed beef as that is in fish. And most people don't realise that. So they're at about the same level. So there's all these misconceptions. And hopefully as time goes on, I think consumers are savvy and they'll start to work some of this stuff.
Oh, yeah. And I think especially now in 2021, everyone's asking better questions. People have been able to join dots a lot better. And everyone's really, taken I look at the pandemic hit in, seeds were one of the first things that sold out along with toilet paper, and so people realized that they can grow their own food. And what really happened that I thought was really special is people realized how hard it was to grow carrots and how do people... How do they sell a bag of carrots for $1? If it was so hard to grow carrots in your own balcony or your own backyard, that value for the food that is being grown, I think, really fast tracked because people realized how damn hard it is to actually grow
carrots. Yeah, I agree.
So I love that. Unfortunately, this bad event has caused a lot of aha moments for people. Lorraine, I want to get to our signature question. Are you ready to be the voice of our soils?
Oh, I'd love to be the voice of the soils. So, I don't know if I'd do it justice though, Ray. That's a big ask.
We'll give it a go and we'll let the audience and the soil lovers judge us on that one. So if you were the voice of our soils, what would you tell us on Earth?
Well, firstly, I'd say please don't leave me with a paddock of bare soil and lack of ground cover, exposed to the elements. I don't like monocrops and I don't like lack of biodiversity. I thrive on biodiversity. Please don't spray me out prior to sowing in a new pasture. I really don't like bathing in chemicals. I don't like it when teeth chew me right to my roots. So set stocking and I don't get on very well at all. And the overuse of synthetic chemicals, fertilizers and pesticides is starting to really drain my lymph nodes. And my mycorrhizal fungi is not appreciative of those things. And let's face it, the mycorrhizal fungi is like the communication system that goes on under the ground. It's how all the critters under the ground communicate, and it's life forming. You know, it's how the trees talk to each other and know when there's a fire coming or there's something horrific coming. That is the network that operates under the ground, and it does not like chemical applications. And sticking sharp implements into me, like plows and tilling my, right into the core of what I'm about, and exposing me again and drying out all the critters that live in the soil is not doing me any favours at all. So if I was speaking for soil, they're all the things that really upsets our soils.
There you go, soil lovers. I just wish you're on the video version of this if you're checking it out on the Soil Learning Centre, because Lorraine leant into the computer and there was so much passion. And I think you're a very upset soil telling us what we need to do. And I really appreciate that, because the urgency is now. In fact, the urgency was 20 years ago, and I'm just really humbled and blessed that I get to hang out with people such as yourself and other soil lovers who are really moving this movement forward. And I think you did an amazing job to be the voice of our soils and let us know that, you wouldn't do this to someone that you care and nurture for. And so we shouldn't treat the soils like dirt, and they need their voice heard. And so I think you've done a great job, Lorraine Gordon. It's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you today. How can the soil lovers hang out with you more? Where can they find you online and see more of the stuff that you create?
The big question, right? You can ask me what our web address is and everything. Well, look, if you actually search for regenerative agriculture at Southern Cross University, you're going to find a whole heap of goodies. You're going to find our Bachelor of Science in Regenerative Agriculture, our graduate certificate, which is now heading up to a master's level. You're going to find our e-newsletter, which keeps all of our huge regen family informed about what's going on around Australia in the regen space. And a whole heap of projects, a lot of interesting research outcomes, particularly at the moment with soil and carbon and how to be a carbon farmer. You're going to find a whole heap of goodies. So just search for Regen Ag at Southern Cross University and it'll take you into all of that nest of goodies.
Absolutely. And the team at your end have given me lots of links and too many to mention.
Good.
So they will all be around this video or in the show notes of the podcast. Go and hang out with Lorraine Gordon and all the team at Southern Cross University. Their work has always been innovative and always will be. So thank you so much, Lorraine, for coming on and digging deeper with our wonderful world of soil.
My pleasure, Ray. Thank you for your time and good luck, everyone. Look after the soil. It's all we've got.
Absolutely. It's the foundation of our existence on the planet, and we need that wake-up call. Soil lovers, until next time, I'm Regen Ray. Get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into the wonderful world of soils. Well, soil lovers, that's enough secrets for one episode. I really hope that you enjoyed all the secrets shared during this conversation. But hey, let's not keep it a secret. Please share this podcast around and make sure that you like it and leave us a review, because that really helps spread the secrets of the soil. Until next time, remember, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into your soils.